So the girls who work with him came to me probably about a year ago and started telling me that, well, he's starting to touch himself very inappropriately, it's getting in the way. It's disrupting his regular therapy sessions. And so it was at that point, so probably when he was about 15 or so, that we decided we really needed to get some intervention. And so the behavioralist that we work with sat down and completed a social story that went through, and like you said before, I mean, he's been learning body parts since he was probably 3 years old.
Right.
Through, the PEC system and all the different little, with his iPad now. So they worked that into there, and so it just became a little bit more down in the weeds.
Right.
With the appropriate, like you said, going into very specific, just going down in there and getting him familiar with what the names were and making it okay, and just saying, that it's normal, and this is what happened, and that's why, it's normal for this kind of behavior. And so we went through and developed a whole social story as what was appropriate, what is not appropriate, where to do things and where not to do things. And so we've just all been working kind of as a team, and every day when they have a session, they go through the story.
Okay.
And so his behavior kind of improved. And there are other strategies that we use, so we don't put him in stretchy pants that he can have
like
access.
Sweatpants.
So everything's buttoned up, so he can't have easy access.
Right.
During the daytimes and things like that. At nighttime he's got his pajama pants on and those, and he's in his bedroom, and so it's a more appropriate period of time.
Do you remember any of the social story? Can you kind of tell the parents? Like
It was a more of a lesson in going through the body parts, and then kind of not teaching him how to do those things, but just saying that, touching where and when to touch. It's more so that kind of lesson.
Did his social story use the word penis?
Yes.
Or it did? So the word penis is was in there.
Right.
It was that explicit.
Yes.
Like something like, sometimes I touch my penis. What I need to know is that when I touch my penis, I have to be...
Exactly. And I think what we were worried about to begin with is that he has some stemming behaviors, and we didn't want it to become a stemming activity like, maybe his pacing or some of the other things that he does that, like you said before, it's a socially acceptable, we wanted to make sure that he knows how to behave in public and around other people, and that's just not something you do in front of other people.
Right. So you made that distinction about public and private.
Exactly.
About the body part.
Exactly. Breaking it down into just simple, and you just have to break away from the embarrassment part of it, and because when you have a kid like that, it's just. It break, all of that washes away so early.
After you get over the hump.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So and he's not really gone to the point where he is locking himself into his room or anything like that. But it's all about the empowerment, teaching him about the body, his body, what is appropriate and what's not appropriate for later on in life, wherever he ends up. We want to make sure that he understands, with his level of understanding, what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
And especially, if he comes across somebody, we just want to make sure that, he understands that no one's allowed to touch him if he's not okay with that.
Right. So, and you did this as a team. I mean, this is you and your husband. This had to do with his teacher because you got a note from school. You included your teacher. And the ABA provider that you also have at home.
Exactly.
This was
they brought it to me, make sure that everybody was okay with it, and that and it was really just a sexual lesson, education.
Yeah. It was another lesson. About this important topic.
Yeah, and you're so right about that. It's just an extension because they're not taught those kind of things in a regular curriculum, but they need to know that my body parts and what feels good, what doesn't feel good, those type of things.
Right. You made it an important point, and one that I hadn't thought about, when you said that your son had some typical self-stimulatory behavior, and that you didn't want him touching his penis to become one of those self-stimming behaviors. Exactly. And so you intervened early. And the other thing that you've done here is you waited until there was a need, there was a sign, but you responded then with some positive guidance.
Right.
Right.
And he doesn't necessarily like the story or going through it, but, you know, it's just something that he has to go through, and so that it kind of sinks in.
Right. So you do this, you did it more than once, and more than just 1 week.
Oh yeah, they do it as part of his regular
routine,
his regular curriculum in his home program. So
right. Yeah. So, and this is continued to provide the continued guidance they just need, and that was his
and I'm sure
story.
as he matures and other issues come up, we'll just kind of tweak it, and it'll go into other
other areas. If there's another point that you see needs to be taught. Right. And so would you say that was your most difficult, to this point, that was the challenge, the biggest challenge that you had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Well, and there was some touching of some of his female therapists too, that we had to do an extinction program on, and teaching him where to touch and where not to touch.
Okay, so what I take from this, and what you're avoiding to say, is he touched women's breasts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you had to guide or redirect the touching.
Right.
Okay.
Where to touch.
Where it's appropriate to touch. And so...
Because he's a big pointer.
Because he's a big pointer. Okay.
Everything, so...
Okay, so, and you did this by observing his behavior or hearing from his teachers or others, and thought,
That's why it's so important to have that line of communication open with all your therapists and all your behavioralists and stuff, so everybody can work as a cohesive,
as a team,
strong team.
Right, right.